Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Elise. This is a newsletter on Sunday, October 27th, being sent out to my community about our new moon in Scorpio today and our month ahead. Thank you for your time and your patience with me. Thank you for joining me today. I am going to put out a fairly intense newsletter. We're going to talk about some rather esoteric stuff. And I first want to acknowledge that the energy for the last few days since the sun went into Scorpio has been fairly intense, I think, for me and possibly for all of you. This is not a light month, although we will be having a wonderful transit of Venus in Sagittarius through the month of November, which will lighten things up considerably. But for the most part, we're starting this month off with a very heavy hand. And we're being asked to go down into the darkness and to go very deep into ourselves and deep into the subconscious and deep into the shadow. This is a shadow play this month. And so what I'd like to offer you today is a discussion of the archetype of Scorpio and what it means to be a transformational force, and what it means, what alchemy means, how we alchemize in our own system, how we play with alchemy and how we play with transformation in a conscious way. And then I would like to offer at the end an exercise that has come to me in the last few days, a meditation that I've been playing with that I think might be really useful for us this month, particularly if you out there are not super used to doing shadow work, if it's something that you're not that comfortable with. I think I have something to offer that might be a little bit of an anchor for you. Okay, so let's dive in. Scorpio, this month, today, later on tonight at 11 o'clock approximately, 11 p.m. Eastern Standard, so at around 8 p.m. Pacific time, we will have our new moon in Scorpio. So the sun will be conjunct moon in Scorpio at around 4 degrees. Now, both of these are going to be opposing Uranus at 4 degrees of Taurus. And this pulls in the concept of the axis, which is at the core of what I want to talk to you about today and is particularly relevant to the exercise that I'm going to be taking you through later. Taurus and Scorpio are opposing forces archetypally. Let me just explain to you what they are at their essence. In Taurus, the archetype of Taurus, we create form, we create beauty, we create value, we create resource, we create meaning, we create that which we hold dear. At Taurus, we hold on to the things that really matter to us, to the things that are deeply, deeply, deeply within, to those core values that we base our life on. Now, in Taurus, we can also hold on to things that aren't very useful, right? We can create things that are not healthy. We can create attachments, or we can create addictions, or we can create beliefs that are aberrant or that are not in alignment with truth. That's just the nature of creation on this planet. We all come in very whole and very pure and very perfect, albeit carrying memories and carrying shadow fragments from past lives. But essentially, at our core, we are all whole and we are all perfect. But when we're incarnate, when we're in form, the nature of the beast is to create structures and create beliefs and create emotional patterns and create mental patterns in response to the environment that we find ourselves in order to survive in it. And Taurus is in the zodiac the archetype of survival. It must survive. So it creates itself in a way that will stabilize and hold itself secure on planet Earth in this form, in this body. What happens to our self when our old forms become outdated? What happens when that thing that we went through when we were 4 years old, that belief structure that we established in order to keep ourselves operating inside of an unhealthy family system? What happens when we're 44 years old and that belief structure no longer serves us And we keep coming up against situations in our lives where we can't move forward because this structure that we created at 4 is holding us back. This is what we all go through. This is what defines our evolution. This constant needing to go back in time and to go back into the forms that we've created and then somehow liberate ourselves from them, recreate them, transmute them, transform them. That art or that act of transformation is Scorpio. It is the dissolution of form, comparing to the creation of form in Taurus. So Taurus creates and Scorpio destroys. That's why the archetype of Scorpio is so intense. It literally will bore down, and it bores in with such focus and such like fervent intensity. It goes right into something and it looks at it in the face and it says, are you real? Are you real? Are you true? Until that thing can't help but change or dissolve. And that's the nature of alchemy. Alchemy is the art and the act and the magic of transmutation of old patterns and recreation of new. So what is the shadow but these old forms that we're holding on to from long ago, these beliefs or these thoughts or these patterns of behavior that we become identified with and that we are acting out unconsciously. So a shadow can be positive or negative. A shadow is anything that you're not allowing yourself to necessarily see, right? It's unconscious. So the consciousness of self has not gone into it. So it's something that is in the underpinning of your nature, of your being, of your identity, but you don't realize it's there. And what happens with shadow? It could be sometimes we're most afraid of facing into our courage, or sometimes we're really afraid of facing into our power. And sometimes we're very afraid of facing into our shame or facing into our fear. Positive or negative, the shadow is just energy. It's energy that's been locked inside of the body, locked inside of our psychological structure, and is waiting for us to reclaim its space, to hold ourselves within it so that we can reunify with it and become more and more and more whole. Because the person you are now is not the person you were when you were 4, and it's not the person you will be 5 or 6 years from now. So you need to be constantly regenerating yourself, constantly reclaiming the parts of your psyche that have fallen behind, so to speak. That's power. That is how we embody powerfully into our form. And to be quite honest with you, it's very difficult to actually create anything, to create new things, when your stabilized structure is based on something from the past. It's like you want to get to ground zero, right? You want to be totally here. You want to be absolutely whole and pure and real and present. You want to have no noise, no detritus in the way. And again, that's another quality of Scorpio, is that ability to go all the way to the bottom, like literally to the bottom of yourself, and hold space, hold that sense of absolute, utter, empty, pure potential. And that is true power. From that place, when we are touching down in rock bottom of who we are and our truest nature, that is when we know where to go next. And we'll deal with that when we hit the month of Sagittarius. But at this point, when we're talking about Scorpio Taurus, what we're really talking about at an esoteric level, let's pull in the esoteric astrology, is we're talking about the battle between the personality and the soul. So what is the personality? The personality is a construct that we have developed in response or reaction to the environment, which has suited us and our need to survive within the environment. What is the soul? The soul is our essential self. The soul is our higher consciousness, and it's our ability to see, to choose, and to be present in the moment, right? And hopefully to connect the heart and the higher mind so that our will force is aligned with something greater than our lower nature. Because when our will is in our lower nature, we are just acting out of instinctual primal consciousness rather than heartfelt consciousness. So it's a little bit complicated. I'm not going to get into all the structural complexity of that right now. But what I want to affirm is that the art of transformation that Scorpio is so known for is the ability to bring awareness, to bring the soul down into the form, which is the personality, the lower nature, and to hold itself so strongly that, like, to hold its focus, to hold its presence so strongly that all of that stuff, all of that detritus, all of those old patterns, all of that ego, all of the shadow, all of the things that have just been sitting there, they start to vibrate, like they start to just go a little crazy, right? They just can't hold their form anymore in the light of awareness. They can't. So it's like the art of transmutation is the ability to take your consciousness, take your conscious mind, take your awareness, take your focus, take your will, and bring it down into the shadow and just rest there. Like, not think about it, not create a story about it, not create a trauma or a ruminatory loop, but to just hold presence there. And this can be unbelievably painful. Trust me, I've been doing this for 2 days now, facing into the shadow. There is nowhere else to go. If you don't go in, you got nothing. Because if you just go out, you can't hold it. You can't hold it. Everything in life is a pattern. It's a duality. You have to have both. As light as you are, that's as dark as you are. So you have to be able to hold yourself inside your form. You have to be able to go into the shadow. That's our job. There's no avoiding it. So this month of Scorpio, the Scorpio new moon, and particularly today and the next few days and the past few days, we have Uranus opposite the sun and the moon in Scorpio. And so what is the calling, or what the invitation is for us to see what is rising, like to really see what forms we've created in our structure, in our psyche, that are done, like that are over, that are old, that are not serving our highest good anymore. And instead of running away from them or panicking or feeling anxious, which can be a useful point of entry, let me not say, it's not that in fact, the entire process just feels horrible. So it could be that you move through a level of anxiety as you're facing into the shadow, and that's part of what you need to kind of go into. That's part of the energy structure that needs to shift. But irregardless of what it is, the invitation is to stay with that shadow self, to look at it in the face, to see it, and to transmute it with your focus and with the force of your mind and the force of your heart, and not to run from it. And today, on this day, that's the stuff that's coming up, okay? Now, I wanted to run us through a little exercise about how to stabilize and ground into this process, and like a way of us to, almost like a little map. I want to give you a map, a little playful map, because 2 weeks from now, when we have the full moon in Taurus, it's going to be an opportunity to kind of stabilize the work that we've been doing. But I'd like to kind of loop that Taurian principle forward because of the Uranus in Taurus right now. I think it's very relevant at the moment to touch into the Taurian truth and to hold that as an anchor point as we do shadow work. So this is what I'd like for you to do. First of all, Taurus is all about our deepest sense of value and that which the underpinnings of our life. So that which keeps us secure, the deepest sense of truth within us, like the inner truth, the inner value system that we live on. So what I think would be a really interesting thing for you guys to try, and I went through this exercise this morning, it was super, super valuable for me, is to spend some time in meditation asking yourself, what are my core values? Like, as an individual human being, irregardless of your upbringing, your religion, your family, your conditioning, your friend group, everything. all outer influences, 100%. Who are you? Who are you? What matters to you? And you may have to go down quite a few layers to find this. It's like going to the root of who you are. Sometimes it's a long, long, long journey. And if you can just look at the examples from your life of like the actual tangible physical things that you've expressed through your life that have been stable or consistent, the patterns, you know, that you have expressed irregardless of what situation you've been in or who has been influencing you, there is a stability. There's a stable ground in there. There is a value system in there that you're born with, that is your core self. And if you can find a way to connect to that feeling of your core self, and to put a few words to it, perhaps 2, 3, 4 values. I found about 4 or 5 core values, right? That are like the deepest truths. They're the things that matter to me most. These things matter to me. And, you know, at least right now, these are the things that matter to me. And there are branches off, like, oh, I like this and I like this and I like this and I value that. But without these core values in place, I don't feel stable. I don't feel strong. If you want a trigger into your value system via the chart, go to the 2nd house in your birth chart and look at the sign or the archetype that is on the cusp of the 2nd house. Then, furthermore, look to the planets that are located in the 2nd house, okay? And if you can explicate the planets that are in the 2nd house, and you can also explicate the ruler of the 2nd house. And if that ruler, say the ruler is Capricorn on the 2nd house, where does Saturn live in the chart? So there are ways of kind of using the astrological lens to loop yourself in, to give yourself a line into this inquiry. But if you don't have that capacity, then, you know, just ask yourself the question and see where it takes you. Next, if you've identified these 3 or 4 core values, I want you to ask the following question. You know, what is it that's preventing me from stabilizing and living these values every day? What is preventing me from committing myself to these values and bringing them to life for myself, to really standing in them and being them and embodying them? What is preventing me? And see where your consciousness goes. Now that is your shadow, okay? Right there. And that is an interesting place to look. It's a good place to go, because as you ask yourself the question, if I value loyalty so much, why am I disloyal in this way, in this way, in this way? Why aren't I loyal to myself here? Why am I not embodying that core value? Or if I value freedom so much, why am I not embodying that value here and here and here and here? Does that make sense to you? So it's like a way of kind of turning back in on yourself and looking at what is missing. Now, it might lead you down a rabbit hole of inquiry that helps you readjust your values as well. You might find that the value that you'd chosen was a peripheral or a surface level, and that when you took it deeper, it changes and morphs, and that's okay as well. But it's really lovely for us to have a concept of a rooted, grounded core self to come back to, especially when we start doing shadow work, because shadow work can be really painful and you can get lost in it. So when I do shadow work, let me explain the process. I experience everything as an energetic frequency, which is, in fact, what everything is. The shadow within the self is simply a place in the energetic system that is vibrating at a different frequency than me. And when I say me, I mean my presence or my awareness or my will. And I can feel the aberrant frequencies in my body. And when I go into them, it's like what happens to me is I have to literally morph myself into them. It's like there's a body inside my body. And the body has its own emotion. It has its own feeling. It has its own posture. It has its own facial expression. Like when I start doing shadow work, like sometimes I look a little weird, right? Like it's almost like I'm an actor and I'm becoming and I'm shape-shifting into these different nuanced structures within my psyche or within my energy body that I have to like kind of give myself permission to kind of become, right? And this woman, Carolyn Elliott, I love her work. She's a witch down in the States, and she talks about this, but she uses the words existential kink for shadow work. And she says, go and give yourself to it. Like, just give yourself full permission to become it and to take pleasure in the becoming. So if there's a part of you that is an asshole, for instance, it's like really mean, go in and reclaim that part. Like, become it, love it, give yourself full permission to be that 100%, to feel its quality, to get it in your body, to feel it in your face, and to just like, to let it have a voice, to let it have a feeling, to let it have expression. But lest we lose ourselves inside the shadow, it's very important to stay aware in it, to not let it become you, and to not let your mind, which is so very powerful, loop yourself into a story about it. You have to keep your head out of it. Like, you have to like keep your higher mind on and your lower mind off. Okay? Because if you loop into the trauma, it will just spin you out of control, and you'll just you just get into a cycle. Like, it's like being a broken record, right? You have to somehow stay a little bit out and then let yourself come in. It's like playing a character. It's literally like putting on a costume, playing a character, being an actor. Imagine that you're being an actor of your own psyche, and you're like rewinding yourself through time and space, and you're going into these fragments of you that have been lost, that you've forgotten, or you just don't want to look at them because they're so nasty. Just be them. They're okay. There's nothing nasty. In fact, there is nothing to fear except for fear itself. And I love that old adage. It's a very scorpionic thing to say, because the truth is, you can go into the deepest pain, the deepest shame, the deepest horror, the deepest trauma. But if you let yourself feel it and stay present with it, it will change. What it will change into? That depends. It depends, but it will shift. It will shift. It will start to move, right? It will start to move. And if you keep yourself referencing your heart and your higher mind, if you kind of keep yourself light within it, it will start to transmute and to shift into energy, which is more malleable and more available for you to hold presence inside of. And your presence, which is intrinsically good, will shine through it. Now, I know there is a way to transmute energy down. Okay, there is a way to transmute energy down, and there is a way to transmute energy up, because we are a spiral of potential. And you can go up the spiral, or you can go down the spiral. And I'm not such a master at this, because I don't let myself go down the spiral. Well, sometimes I do. Like, sometimes I'll play with it. Like, yesterday I had some seriously down the spiral moments. And I guess like going down the spiral is when you get your mind in, when you start to like, when you hold it, then you start to make it worse, like you start to like make it worse, like, and you start to take it down, and you start to imagine, and you start to create, and you start to dream a darker tale. And sometimes I will just do that just to see how far down I can go, because I think it's kind of fun. And it's also extremely traumatic. Like, I can handle it because I've been doing this stuff for 20 some years, and this is what I do for a living. This is like my psyche is like, this is what I do for a living. I have Pluto in the 4th house. This is my life. But I don't think I would recommend that to a lot of people, because I think it's really hard. And unless you have a great therapist who can hold the space for you, and like who knows what's going down, and who can track you and like pull you out. Even when you're studying psychotherapy, they say you have to keep the adult on. You have to keep the adult on. You have to keep the psyche open and aware. You can't just like let yourself go into that inner ruminatory darkness, or you're going to lose it. So keep aware, keep focused. And if you need help doing shadow work, by all means, reach out to a good therapist. Even reach out to a friend. Create a structure that's safe for you, so that you don't re-traumatize yourself or get lost, okay? That's why I'm suggesting the value system exercise, because it gives you an anchor. It gives you a point of focus, and so you're not just swimming. Because a lot of the time, like the trauma, especially if you're not used to doing shadow work, there could be stuff in there that is so deep and scary that you're not quite ready for the maelstrom or the tsunami of emotion that might come through, okay? But at the end of the day, there is nothing to be afraid of. And And emotion is energy in motion that wants to be reclaimed. And all the shadow is a part of you that wants you to hold it. It just wants you to be there for it. It just wants to be reclaimed. It wants to come back home. And so are you a home that is safe for your shadow to come into? That's you asking yourself, am I trustworthy? Am I living by my values? Do I matter? Right? So anyway, I hope this exercise makes sense. I hope, as always, as the double Gemini that I am, that I make sense, that this is useful. And I just want to say one more thing. The Uranus opposite the moon tonight is a disruptive energy, so it's a breaking. So you may notice that things come up through your day that are alarming or that are shocking you into awareness of what is there. And just, be patient with yourself today and stabilize and ground as much as you can. But it's Uranian influence is pretty strong, and it's a lightning quick activation from higher mind down into the form. So intuition comes down. So you may get blasts of information on different levels that give you a knowledge or an understanding of the shadow that's ready to go, and that could be a way that we access the energy today as well, is just by creating some time and space for our intuitive channel to open and for us to receive information about what we're now ready to let go of that is keeping us from living our truest form. Okay. And then in 2 weeks, when we have the full moon in Taurus, if I don't do a video for you, what I want you to do is I want you to look back over the 2 weeks, the shadow work that you've done in the next 2 weeks. And I want you to honor the stabilization that's happened, because by the full moon in Taurus, I guarantee you are going to be much more in touch with your true values and with that which matters to you most. You're going to feel more strong inside yourself because you will have cleared through whatever it is, the next layer of your onion that is ready to go now. So that's what we're doing this month. It's so fun. It's so good. I love the month of Scorpio. It's definitely not my favorite, but never mind. I honor it. I'm grateful for it. So we're all going to do it together. Don't worry. It's all happening. Anyway, there's more stuff on the Saturn square Mars all month, and we've got Mercury going into retrograde. I believe it's on the 31st on Halloween. So we've got some other stuff going on this month. But Mars is squaring the nodal axis all month, or at least right now, not all month, but right now. And I just wanted to leave you with one more nugget or one more seed. This is a continuation of the pattern with the Saturn and Pluto and Capricorn, and the North Node in Capricorn, South Node in Cancer. And right now our Mars and Libra is squaring the nodal axis. And I just want to continuously reaffirm that it's okay to reach out to your friends. It's okay to help each other feel safe. And there is such a need for us to emote right now and for us to feel safe with each other and with ourselves. And I think this month is particularly going to call us into that. And that for some reason, the way we are able to show up in communication with each other, the way we're able to support each other, the way we're able to connect and collaborate and cooperate with each other is going to be kind of on the table for us all. So keep that in mind, and I'm going to shut this down. I love you all so much. Thank you. And please send me emails and let me know whether this made sense to you guys. Okay. Okay. Bye-bye.